our reviewers, of course, who are already seated and ready to roll. And I'm talking about Honorable Chuks Akunna and Dr. Yobosa Owajere. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Good
and welcome once again.
Good to have you, Doctor, and the Honorable.
You better become this honorable that I've given you.
All right, let's start with the authority. Edugate. Tinubu summons Interior Minister Tunji Ojo as EFCC widens dragnet, arrests 3 bank CEOs. And you also want to find above the masthead, presidency prunes official trip delegations by 60%, Vice President, First Lady affected, on page 2.
The Daily Times is up next, and it chose to put the story this way: Edugate. More heads to roll as EFCC quizzes bank chiefs. Report indicts Tinubu's minister. PDP Atiku call for stiffer sanctions. And read up.
Nigerian pilots is flying through with corruption, no place to hide. EFCC chairman says there will be no hiding place for corrupt people in Nigeria. The President Bola Tinubu's political will impetus for frontal attack on financial crimes. EFCC quizzes Sadiya Umaru Farouk Betta Edu over alleged fraud on page 3.
The People's Daily is up next. It says Tinubu orders massive cut in official travel delegations. And then the bold one, still talking about the contract scam, 438 million naira contract scam. Interior Minister Tunji Ojo cited in Aso Rock. PDP demands minister suspension probe. NBA expresses concern. I guess that's the story you wanted us to look at.
And court declares Senator Samanyao PDP National Secretary. But let's look at this Nigeria. EFCC grills 3 bank CEOs over 44 billion naira, 37.1 billion naira, 585 million naira scandal. Zenith, J's providers fingered an alleged shady deal in Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Suspended Edu, ex-minister Umaru Farouk still undergoing interrogation. No more bogus entourage, and that's on page 5.
The Nigerian News Direct is also leading with better Edu story. Says Tinubu has set the pace for us to fight corruption. That's credited to the EFCC as it vows to investigate anyone found culpable. Costs of governance. Tinubu orders VP MDAs to reduce travel expenses on page 2 of the paper.
Now let's look at First News, and it says, Gbajabi Amila reveals those behind Tinubu's rise to presidency, but leading still is better Edu story. EFCC arrests grills Zenith providers, J's banks, MDs, and you also want to see there PDP demands Tunji Ojo's sack as one of the riders.
Cost of governance. Tinubu cuts travel delegation by 60%. A president's foreign entourage slashed to 20. Vice presidents 5. Local trips cut at 25 members for president, first lady 10. CEOs of agencies limited to 2 members. Shekarau, others Lord decision. That's the bold one on the Leadership newspaper this morning.
I saw Gabriel Attal makes it as one of France's prime ministers as one of the stories as well. And Daily Sun is rising with degree bazaar. Federal government probes private varsities. Others inaugurate 6-man investigative panel. Vows not to spare culprits. You also want to look at that story there. EFCC quizzes detains Betadu. Her suspension not enough. Article.
The New Telegraph, chose to lead this way. Economic realities. Tinubu pegs foreign trips entourage at 20. And you have details on pages 3 and 5. 585 million scandal, that's naira there. EFCC grills a suspended Edu.
And The Guardian is looking at an interesting picture story. One of the president and the minister, of course, it's a gate story there. Nigerians want probe expanded to other poverty alleviation schemes. And that's 585 million naira humanitarian scandal story, making it there as a lead on page 6. And then you have all the stories there. Nigeria's economy to grow at 3.3% in 2024, World Bank projects.
The Daily Trust also expectedly leading with Edugate. EFCC grills Zenith, Jaiz, Providus Banks, CEOs. It's a routine invitation, say bank officials. PDP demands suspension of Tunji Ojo over 438 million naira contract. Riders to that big story. Then Niger Hunter releases Bazoum's son 167 days after coupists need to do more.
And the Nigerian Tribune looks at the slash there, says Tinubu slashes entourage for foreign, local trips by 60%. President, entourage not more than 25 officials for local trips, 20 for foreign. VP, entourage not more than 15 officials for local trips, 5 for foreign trips. Wife of the president, entourage not more than 10 officials for local trips, 5 for foreign trip. Ministers, only 4 accompanying officials. With federal government sets up panel to probe private varsities, foreign institution, below that picture story.
And then Tinubu tackles cost of governance, slashes travel, Esther codes by 60%. Flout the rules at your peril, President wants aides. You have that as the leading story on the Blueprint newspaper. Supreme Court reserves a judgment on Mutfwang or Borrowori appeals. That's on page 9 of the paper.
And business day is running through gridlock. There's a big story, cost grid collapse test, Tinubu's electric vehicle rollout. You also want to look at that story there. Rig count in Delta fails to match Nigeria's 1.7 million barrels per day target, and bleak future for MAX 737 in Nigeria as airlines shun others. Cash scarcity persists despite CBN order there, and that's what we see as our final story on the front page. But let's come to our reviewers. I'll start with you, Dr. Wajaren. And of course, Educate is, of course, trailing the papers across board, both online and offline. Here we see the authority saying Tinubu summons Interior Minister Tunji Ojo as EFCC widens dragnet, arrest 3 bank CEOs.
Well, first, I want to commend the action taken so far by the federal government, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to dig into the matter, including the probe by the EFCC and the ICPC and other security agencies. Those moves are very, very commendable. It's giving the indication that it is no longer as usual, business is no longer as usual. That is also a strong message to other agencies, ministries, and parasitas and government officials that they need to sit up. That this present government is ready to punish bad behavior. But like somebody was saying yesterday, let it not just be because there is public outcry about what is happening, then you are taking those initiatives, those steps, in order to allow the tension to die down and later forget about it. I agree with the saying that the president should set up a committee or a security agency to conduct a systemic, to conduct systemic failure in virtually all the parasitas. What is happening about this Better Edu case, that's now popularly known as Edu Gate, has been happening in all the agencies and parasitas. Well, this one is happening because maybe Edu was not clever. She was not clever enough, or maybe because or maybe because she did not carry the civil servant along, because those are the real people who know how to manipulate the system, even when they are not following the due process. Now, let me give you an example. Now, if you look at the issue of this money transfer, first and foremost, the ministers I'm talking about raise a memo to the Accountant General to release the amount that is now being very controversial. And the Accountant General issued a statement a few days ago to say that, look, yes, we received that memo, but that memo was never approved. How come, in spite of the fact that the money was not approved, how come they were able to still pull out the money from the system? How come? Now, if you look at if you are very familiar with the civil service rule, you should know that the permanent secretary is the chief accounting officer. The minister has no business raising a memo. If you want to raise a memo either from a program officer or from a director, you raise a memo to the permanent secretary. The permanent secretary will thereafter, minute that memo to the internal auditors who will now look at it. Now, if there are infractions, it is the duty of the internal auditor to flag those infractions. But I think what they did is to perhaps capitalize on the greed of the minister or the inexperience of the minister, and to allow the whole thing went through, and at the end of the day, look at what we have seen today. I have a friend who was a political appointee during President Goodluck Jonathan administration. When it was time for him to appoint a special assistant, you know what he did? He appointed a civil servant. And I asked him why. He said, you know what? I am just new as a political appointee. But if I don't want to run into trouble, I need somebody, a civil servant, who is very experienced in the procedures to be able to guide me. Even the civil servant, even when they want to breach the procedure, they know how to do it very well without being caught. So I think the whole thing is a systemic failure. The president needs to conduct a thorough audit in all the agencies and ministries. Let me tell you, what Edwin did, better Edwin did, has been happening in the system. People pay money to private account whenever they want to execute project. It's been there for a very long time. Even during President Muhammad Buhari's regime, that was exactly what was happening in that ministry. So there's a total systemic failure in that ministry. Yeah. So
thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest video.